Tonight's Hometown Novel Nights is a special night. It's a mystery and suspense theme for October, which is perfect for this month. So we're very excited for this. And tonight, our Hometown Novel Nights is being hosted by our wonderful local Newton author, T.M. Brown, also known as Mike to his friends and family. So it looks like he's up on his Mac now. So without further ado, I introduce you to Mike. Take it away.
Welcome, everybody. This is, I was just tickled to death that we're having such, every month since we started in August with this virtual, we're getting more and more people. And I'm just so pleased that so many people have come in to be curious about what we're doing at Hometown Novel Nights. Couple of things just before we get started. Tonight we're here with, Angela McRae from Newton. And I'm going to say this in the order which I'm going to call you out. Kathleen Cosgrove, which I look forward to listening to and seeing talk, from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So she's our Tennessean that is here because we're on Zoom, thankfully. And then we've got Sharon Marchisello. And Sharon's been one of those Hometown Novel Night authors that really has lent a hand. And I'm so pleased that she spearheaded this mystery author night. And then obviously, Roger, I'm saving you last only because you're the cleanup hitter tonight. And then Roger Johns will follow, coming back, lives in Douglasville. And I'm so pleased that I wish he was driving here because I enjoy having dinner with him quite often. But for now, having him here tonight is very special. So as it is typical format for the programming, I'm going to get ready to shut up because all I'm going to do is ask each author to do three basic things in their discussion. Introduce themselves after I give you a brief introduction, then go and talk about your writing journey, and then talk about your books or your latest book that you would like to feature in the conversation tonight. That obviously is a mystery or a suspense or a thriller. So anyway, Angela is from the Newton area, very well known. Her husband, Alex, is also known because he's been a writer and columnist for at the Newton Times-Herald for years. He just recently retired. And Angela began her writing career as a newspaper reporter. So she shares her career with her husband from that side of things. She initially covered the police beat, but then moved on to feature articles. However, along the way, she discovered her muse for cozy mysteries when she wandered into a small bookstore and read a little bit of a tea shop mystery that's set in Charleston, South Carolina, entitled Death by Darjeeling, and I just probably crucified that, by Laura Child. So, and she got hooked on cozy mysteries, and she has now written one herself. Emeralds and Envy just came out I think just before the first of the year, into 2019, if I remember, Angela, and forgive me if I don't have that date right in front of me. But here's just the lead in, and you take it from here. Emma Madison loves junking for old baubles to turn into dazzling new creations, and launching her new career as a jewelry designer in the small town of Roseland, Georgia. And the rest is for you to find out as Angela introduces herself, and then eventually we'll talk more about that. Angela, you're up.
Okay, good. And I've unmuted myself, so thank you all for tuning in tonight. This is great, and I've been looking forward to talking with you about my mystery journey. Kind of short and sweet, and I'm so happy I get to go first. I think Mike knows I'm always a nervous wreck, so I feel like get me out of the way, and then I can happily take notes and enjoy learning from the rest of you. So thanks for that, Mike. As he said, I started out as a newspaper reporter, so that was my journey into the writing world. And I've heard since that a lot of people start out that way. I think because when we're younger, we're encouraged to take a safer route, perhaps, that journalism is a good paying job. And you know, fiction writers and poets, we just don't know if they'll be able to pay the bills. So I don't know that we've encouraged those people properly. I'd like to see that reconsidered today. So anyway, when the newspaper industry was going through a big change years ago, Hours bought a magazine and I became the editor of that. And I really enjoyed it. And one of my sidekicks there at the magazine used to work in the book industry for a very large company that used to do book publications all over the world. And I began to realize that it wasn't rocket science and it wasn't magic to get a book published. It just meant you had to do a lot of work. You had to be good at writing. You had to know your craft. And then the mechanics of putting it together, you could do yourself, or you could go the traditional route and have someone publish your book for you. So my first book that I ever published was called Dainty Dining, a little book of tea room recipes. And I really enjoyed writing that, had a great time with it. But then I decided I wanted to write a cozy mystery because just as Mike said, Death by Darjeeling caught my eye. And I have this almost 20-year-old book in a pride of place on a bookshelf in my office to this day, because it totally changed the way I see the book world. I don't know if y'all have heard that saying about Cinderella says a shoe can change your life. And I think a book can change your life. Certainly, I'm a Christian, so the Bible changes my life. That comes to mind as a huge one for many of us. We think that, or there may be other books. There are self-help books, there are novels, all kind of things have made an impact on people's lives. And this is one that definitely appealed to me because I had been such a fan of nonfiction. I thought that only serious writers would approach nonfiction, and the silly people wrote fiction, in my estimation back then. I later learned, lo and behold, a lot of truth can be contained in fiction. And when I picked up this, only because I happened to be a tea fan, I might not have ever picked it up except for this topic, and just fell in love with cozy mysteries. Because especially now that I'm just a typical middle-aged woman, let my hair go gray last year, you know, I'm the target audience for these. I love these. They're clean, safe reads. I like to tell people they're sort of like popcorn. You can eat one right after the other. My husband loves these gripping thrillers, you know, all the Jack Reacher books and that kind of thing. And he can just go through those like mad. But if I read one of those, I'm going to be up all night and terrified. And a cozy, I'm just not. It's much more Jessica Fletcher, a warm little cozy town. And I know warm little cozy towns. I've grown up in one, and then I moved to one out of college and have lived in Noonan for over 30 years now. So I know cozies, and it's just funny to me that I was visiting the small town bookstore one day when I first saw Death by Darjeeling on the rack, and I made some notes because I think this is important. I was thinking back to what I was doing that had me there that day. I was actually there as a reporter because many of you know our police chief here in Noonan, Buster Meadows. His brother, David Meadows, was working, and still may be, for all I know, at the Pentagon for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He had just written his debut novel called The Sixth Fleet. He's since written several series of military thrillers. I was there to interview him, but the line was so long, I didn't want to interrupt people who were there to see the local boy makes good. You know, he had this great career. Now he had this great book launch. So I was just doing a rotation around Scott's bookstore. And finally, I looked at the mass market paperbacks, which I had never really looked at before. Those weren't my cup of tea, or so I thought. And so it was just interesting to me that I was there to interview Buster's brother, who I read his book too and loved it. It was this fascinating military thriller. And interestingly, he wrote it in early 2001. And the premise was Muslim extremists committed this attack on America. Now, isn't that prescient? You know, I just thought he was, I don't know, a soothsayer after that. But I later realized with his inside knowledge of the military, his Navy experience and life in the Pentagon, he wrote a book that was just predicting, I guess, what everybody in the military seemed to know was going to happen. So anyway, when I look back to my writing journey, I'm very thankful that David Meadows came to Noonan that day and had a big line, because if he hadn't have, I wouldn't have discovered the tea shop mysteries, and I wouldn't have gone on to write mysteries. As Mike said, my first mystery came out last year. It was called Emeralds, and is still called Emeralds and Envy. It's written by, or published by Red Adept Publishing, which is a small press in North Carolina. And last week, I turned in the second book in the series, Rubies and Revenge. And I'm very happy to say that I'm now working on the third book in the series. This has been an interesting process for me because those of you who are writers know about the difference in being a pantser and a plotter. And to my dismay, I discovered that the pantser life I had thought I'd chosen was not for me. It takes me so long to untangle things, having worked without outlines for 2 books, that I don't intend to ever do that again. I think I can write books quicker and smarter. I see Roger smiling because he must have dealt with this before. I think I wish I'd had a writer who had held my hand and said, don't do that. That won't work. It will take you far too long. It will drive you crazy. It just felt like untangling the world's biggest puzzle to, you know, I would have 5,000 events happening on Thursday and, you know, only 2 things happening on Friday. It made no sense. And I guess I didn't know what I didn't know, but I do now. And so that's the great thing. I'm so excited about this 3rd book because I'm writing it from A to Z. I won't be, you know, just kind of guessing how to untangle all this. And I have a feeling I will be a better and faster writer, which is important these days. One thing I didn't realize the importance of is that readers don't really want to wait as long as they used to. If you've got an audience and they're used to getting a book a year or 2, you know, you can't wait 5 years to give them the next title, not if you want to stay in their memory. So that's important to me, to become a faster, better writer. And something else I just wanted to mention for the fellow writers in the group is that one, I guess, silver lining of the pandemic has been so many Zoom things that we can take advantage of that weren't available before. And there's a fellow cozy writer I know, I've been reading for a few years, Jane Friedman, who offers workshops on Saturdays. I forget which Saturday it is, the 2nd or 3rd. It's this coming Saturday, whatever number that ends up being is her next one. And I have learned so much from her craft of writing seminars. And I was really heartened because the last time at the end of her workshop, somebody asked a question and said, what do you do when you get a negative review? I think that's something every writer has had to deal with and come to terms with somebody who just doesn't love your work quite as much as you do. And she just kind of looked into the camera and said, I write a better book the next time. And I thought, isn't that great advice? That just kind of nailed it for me. I thought, you know, you can't go back and redo something to make every single reader happy. We like to make as many of them happy as we can. But I love that she said that. And so anyway, writers like her who are cozy writers happen to be my favorites, but I love all kind of mysteries. I just like writing the cozy ones because that's more of the world I know. And I think it also allows me to include some of my passions, which are junking, jewelry collecting, all the middle-aged lady pursuits. That's definitely my people. And I hope to be speaking to them for many years to come. I think I'm finding my tribe, and that has been a great joy. A local teacher I know told me after she read my book, she called her daughter and said, I've got all this old costume jewelry. I didn't think it was worth anything, but now I've decided to save it. And they were on the phone for 2 and 3 hours with mom labeling this stuff so that they can leave it to the children and grandchildren. And that was, you know, I thought you can't really get all that in a review, but that was very rewarding to me. So that's my writing journey from newspaper reporter to cozy writer. And that's where I am today with number 2 just now behind me and starting on number 3. So thanks so much.
Yeah, outstanding, Angela. And so pleased that you're here. And first of all, you do have a tribe. Everywhere I go, you know, your name comes up, pops up all the time. So matter of fact, if anybody's looking for a great editor, I think I know one. Miss Angela does quite a bit of that. And, but no, I know Connie has, my wife has read your book and really, you know, bragged upon it. So she's one of your fans too. So she's part of your tribe.
Yay.
Has anybody got a question they'd like to address to her?
I would like to make a comment if I could.
Oh,
I love a good pun. And when you were talking about that interview where you were standing in line and you were waiting and waiting and you said, for the first time, I noticed all the mass market books, but they weren't my cup of tea. I thought, is that intentional because the book she bought was about a cup of tea?
Sort of, because I say cup of tea a lot because people know that's kind of I'm a tea girl, you know.
Anybody else?
When is the next one coming out?
You know, I don't have a date yet, but I suspect it will be next year. I think the contract always says they have 2 years to do it, but it's always been sooner than that, I believe. So,
and is it with the same house or is it different house?
It's also with Red Dead.
Excellent. Any sneak preview on what you got coming?
In the second book? Or
yeah, the second book.
Okay, yes. In the second book, it takes place in the fall, and this lovely small Georgia town, which is just a beautiful little fairy tale town with a courthouse square and lots of Christmas lights, has a big holiday bazaar coming up. And it's definitely a case of things are not what they seem, and I don't know if I could say fearless leader, but a leader of the town, well, something happens to her at the bazaar. Dun, 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 dun. You know, it's that kind of thing. So that's how I kick off that story. And it was a lot of fun to write, because I was really trying to plan a lot of red herrings, and my husband didn't immediately know, and he's very good at guessing these. So he didn't know till the end. So I thought, okay.
Is it part of a series, or is it a standalone?
No, they're all part of the, I call them the Junk in Jewelry series, because my main character loves to go to flea markets and thrift stores and places, and she buys old junk jewelry and makes new jewelry out of it, which is sort of in the, I don't know if y'all know the term green crafting, but in the craft world, people talk about that these days. It's sort of upcycling. It's a way of recycling old baubles that people wouldn't have used, that they would have just thrown away, but now they turn them into something new, and it's kind of a trendy thing. So it sort of allows me to combine my flea market antique mall passions, and I've given them to this character that I'm conjuring, and I'll let her do all these fun things that I've not done, but I think in another life I might have done that. So
Miss Angela, again, it's always a wonderful pleasure to have you and to be around you. And Sharon, again, has been a good friend, a hometown Novel Night supporter. She's been here since basically the beginning, not long after we got started. She lives in Peachtree City. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah.
And dealing with the mystery novels, because she does other writing and different type of writing. But for tonight, I'm going to focus on her 2 mystery novels. Going Home was her first, and then there's The Secrets of Galapagos, which came out last year. She's an active member of Sisters in Crime, of which Roger and I are brothers in crime. She grew up in Tyler, Texas, earned her Bachelor of Arts from the University of Houston in French and English. She studied for a year in Tours, France on a Rotary scholarship, and then moved to LA to pursue her master's in professional writing at the University of Southern California. Retired from a 27-year with Delta Airlines, she now lives in Peachtree City, Georgia. And if I ever read my notes all the way, I wouldn't have been doubted Peachtree City. Going Home is the first that, just to give you a brief preview, Michelle De Palma expected to jet into Two Wells, Texas, check on her elderly mother, and hurry back to her orderly life in Atlanta, where she has a happy marriage and satisfying career. Instead, she finds her mother, Lola Hansen, hovered over the bludgeoned body of her caregiver, Brittany Landers. Now, there's an introduction of a story that I think is worth talking about a little bit. So when you talk, Sharon, I hope you'll talk about that one. And then she's got The Secrets of Galapagos. This one intrigues me because of this. One, she went there. So she'd done some very in-depth research on her own. And I know her and Sharon and her husband do a lot of travel. So just kind of giving you the little bit, just a snippet about the story. While snorkeling in Gardner Bay off the coast of Espanola Island, Giovanna and another cruise passenger, tortoise researcher Laurel Pardue, both become separated from the group, and Laurel is left behind. No one on the ship will acknowledge Laurel is missing, and Giovanna suspects a cover-up. Interesting mystery possibilities and with some suspense, obviously, with this. So with that introduction, Miss Sharon, I turn the floor to you.
Okay, so I guess you want to know my writing journey first and then hear about the books. And I've been writing all my life, And even before I knew how to write my alphabet, I would tell myself stories to put myself to sleep at night when my parents put me to bed too early. And I got a lot of positive feedback going from teachers and friends with the stories that I turned in. I always made good grades on my writing assignments, but never did really get anything published. I wrote my first novel when I was in my 20s, and it was kind of a semi-autobiographical, plotless mess. And it, needless to say, I wasn't able to sell that. And when I went out to the University of Southern California to study writing and pursue my master's in professional writing, I showed it to one of my teachers, and he read it, and he said, well, maybe you should start a new project. And he was really big on genre fiction. I thought that you should pick a genre. He was a big mystery fan, but I had never really read a lot of mysteries, and I didn't really think I could write a mystery. So I thought, well, maybe I'll write a romance. And I'd had people tell me I did good romantic scenes. So my next novel was sort of an attempt at romance. It was kind of a coming of age novel, and about a young teacher who gets a scholarship to go study in France. So I used the background from my year living in Tours, France on the Rotary Scholarship. And there's some romance, but I didn't quite end it. They didn't live happily ever after. She kind of went off on her own, didn't choose either guy. So it wasn't your typical romance. I just couldn't do it. It just didn't make sense. And I wasn't able to sell that one either. And I did, after I graduated from University of Southern California, I went to work for Western Airlines, and I did a lot of traveling, and I wrote some travel articles, and I was able to sell some travel articles, and I wrote some nonfiction pieces, but still had not been successful with fiction. Done a few short stories, and then one night when I was working at the Los Angeles airport, it was the year before the Olympics when the airport, our terminal was under construction, and I worked the late shift. And I was walking out to meet a flight one night, and I was all alone with these creaky floors, and it was dark, and I was thinking, gosh, somebody could get killed out here and nobody would know. And that sort of was born writing a mystery. I wrote a mystery called Murder at Gate 58A. And I had so much fun doing it. I, picked out the victim, and I set up all the suspects, gave everybody a motive, and then tried to figure out whose motive was really strong enough to actually commit murder and unravel all the clues. And I actually had an agent for that mystery. But I think he was new. He was just starting his agency. He probably didn't know the market very well, and I was never able to sell that. So it's still on the shelf. And when I moved to Atlanta, somebody I had mentioned writing a mystery, and someone told me about Sisters in Crime. So I joined Sisters in Crime, which has really been very beneficial for learning about. What I really liked about it was every month we have a guest speaker that's kind of a subject matter expert. And I mean, there are some writers sometimes too, but what I really liked the best was when we had like police detective or medical examiner, and you could get some contacts for verifying stuff that you needed, information that you needed to know to write your mysteries. But anyway, then while I was working, in around 2000, my mother came down with Alzheimer's disease. And I remember when I was going back and forth to take care of her, I don't know if anybody's had dealings with someone with dementia, but thinking about having a conversation with somebody that has dementia, it can be really frustrating because it seems like you're having a normal conversation, then 5 minutes later, you can't remember a thing that they said. So I thought, gosh, what would it be like to interview a witness or a suspect that knew something about a murder that had Alzheimer's? And so that was kind of the inspiration for Going Home. And in Going Home it's about a baby boomer daughter whose mother has Alzheimer's, and she lives in another city. And so the mother's got 24-hour care, and she comes periodically to check on things. And so it opens up at the beginning of one of those visits, and she opens the door, and there she is. There's her mother standing over the bludgeoned body of her caregiver, and she can't give a straight answer about what happened. And she's alone in the house, so she becomes a suspect. And now the agency's not going to send another caregiver over because the last one got killed. So now Michelle, the protagonist, is stuck in the hometown with the mother that has Alzheimer's, and she's never taken care of anything more complicated than a cat. And now she's taking care of her mother, sort of a role reversal, having to take care of a mother with Alzheimer's. And she's stuck in the hometown that she left as soon as she was able. And all the old baggage from the past is coming back, people that she thought that she'd never have to see again are walking back into her life. And she's got to be the amateur sleuth and try to solve the murder. So then the second one, and that one was published, I guess I wrote that, I started writing it in 2003. It went through about 7 drafts, lots of submissions and rejections in between. I sent it to agents and also publishers that would look at unagented material. And I finally got an offer from Sunbury Press, which is a small publisher in Pennsylvania, and in 2013, and it came out in 2014. So it was really a full decade of trying to get this book published. And I was a slow writer too, because I was working full time. I'd get up early in the morning. I'd get up at 5 in the morning, write for an hour, then get ready to go to work, and be thinking about it a little bit during the day. But mainly that 1 hour in the morning was my writing time. And then my second one is Secrets of the Galapagos. And I'm a slow writer, so it took a while. I didn't start, I actually started a sequel to Going Home after that was turned in, but I never did get very far. It was one of those NaNoWriMo projects. And Going Home takes place in 2001, which wasn't too far-fetched, considering I started writing it in 2003. And one of the reasons I set it in 2001 was because with my first book, Murder at Gate 58A, I set it in the late 80s. Well, I didn't really name a time, it was just the present. And when it takes a long time to write and it takes a long time to try to sell, I remember going back and picking it up and seeing all these anachronisms, and writing about the airport and different changes in airport security. And back when I started writing it, they had smoking on the planes, and now they don't have smoking on the planes. I had a scene where my protagonist stops and just stops at a phone booth and makes a phone call. And now in the age of cell phones, so I thought, rather than trying to keep updating with technology, I'm just going to set it at a time. And right after 9/11 was such a traumatic event for everyone. Everyone can remember what the world was like and what they were doing. And in fact, Going Home is set just 1 month after 9/11. And part of the memory resets that her mom has, some things she talks about 9/11 and seeing the planes, and it played with everybody's mind. So And that's part of some of the excuse and the denial of the Alzheimer's. It's like, you know, well, she's freaked out by 9/11. She's from New York, and, you know, watching all that stuff on TV, watching those planes over and over again hit those buildings. So anyway, that's why I said it in 2001. But then when I set out to write a sequel, well, it was going to be 2002, and I didn't want to write in 2002. I got bored writing in 2002 and trying to remember, you know, go back to the technology. I really wanted to write more in the present. So I actually have, they're both standalone novels, but Secrets of the Galapagos took two characters from Going Home. The protagonist, Michelle, who's the protagonist in Going Home, is a minor character in Secrets of the Galapagos. And her granddaughter, who in Going Home, she finds out that one of the complications from her past, she got pregnant in high school and went to an unwed mother's home and gave up a child for adoption. And she finds out later that her son was killed in the Iraq War, but the daughter-in-law finds her, and she has a granddaughter. So she has a granddaughter that's 10 years old when she in Going Home. So she's never had children, but now she's a grandmother. And so in Secrets of the Galapagos, the granddaughter, who's now 25 years old, is the protagonist. And she and Michelle go on a cruise of the Galapagos together, grandmother, granddaughter cruise. And Giovanna, when she graduated from college and got a degree in accounting, and got a real high-powered job as a corporate auditor, and did that for about 3 years, made a lot of money, saved up a lot of money, but her passion was really animal rescue. And her dream was to start a spay-neuter clinic. So after a few years working, she had saved up enough money, and she was engaged to a guy who was a veterinarian. So they decided they're going to go pursue their dreams, and they built a spay-neuter clinic. But she kind of wanted to fast track it with the funding, and a friend of hers from college had the husband of a friend of hers from college was a lawyer, and he had a lot of skill with nonprofits. And so the friend talked her into taking him on as a partner. And he turned out to be a crook, a con man, and sucked up all the donations and bankrupted her, and you know, left her kind of the scourge of the town. And so when the novel starts, she has lost her business. She's lost all her money. Her fiance broke up with her because he blamed her for bringing on this partner, and so lost the investment. And so she's just devastated. And so her grandmother decides to kind of try to make her feel better, take you anywhere you want to go, and we'll go on a cruise. So they went on a cruise to the Galapagos. But what she doesn't know is the guy, the con man who bankrupted her, his last purchase was an ocean-going sailboat, and he's off to the Galapagos. So that's one of the reasons why she wants to go to the Galapagos. And so they encounter mystery and mayhem. She also gets involved in, there's a mystery surrounding a giant tortoise, and a few cover-ups. There's another passenger on the cruise that's building a resort there. So everybody has a little bit of an agenda, and they all kind of come clashing together.
Anybody have a question for Sharon?
I read the book. I love the book. That's not a question, but it's a statement.
Sharon, your two books, oops, I'm sitting in the dark. Your two books are very different. Do you enjoy the contrast of them? And if so, which way do you see yourself going in the future?
Actually, probably in another direction.
I'm curious.
The one that I'm writing now is kind of a cozy mystery, mm-hmm. which I'm hoping might turn into a series. It's set in a small town. It's around animal rescue.
Anybody else have a question or a comment for Sharon? I guess what we'll do is we'll move on to Roger Johns. And Roger has been waiting patiently in the wings, ready to step up as the cleanup hitter to this evening. I've known Roger for, gosh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. And I've seen how he has been one of those authors that did it right and did it the hard way. It was, you know, he did all the right steps. He knows there's no shortcuts in this publishing world, and he did paid his dues to produce a couple of great books. And I know he's busy preparing to follow that up. Roger Johns is a former corporate lawyer and a retired college professor, and the author of the Wallace Hartman mysteries that were published by St. Martin's Press, the Minotaur Books imprint. And Dark River Rising came out in 2017, and River of Secrets in 2018. He is the 2018 Georgia Author of the Year for Detective and Mystery category, and the author of the Wallace Hartman mysteries from, my eyes has shifted, sorry. A 2018 Killer Nashville Reader's Choice Award nominee, and a finalist for the 2018 Silver Falchion Award for Best Police Procedural. His articles and interviews on writing and the writing life have appeared in Career Author, Criminal Element, Killer Nashville, and Southern Literary Review. Roger belongs to the Atlanta Writers Club, Sisters in Crime, Mystery Writers of America, and International Thriller Writers. Before I get Roger started here, I've got to share, I've read both of his novels, and his opening in his first novel is legendary. So in Dark River Rising, it's the beginning of the Wallace Hartman mystery series, the first book. Baton Rouge police detective Wallace Hartman has had better days. With her longtime partner and mentor on medical leave and a personal life in shambles, she's called on to a scene of a particularly gruesome murder. The body of a known criminal has been found in a deserted warehouse, a snake sewn into his belly. I will let your mind wander from there and let Roger fill in the rest. In Rivers of Secrets, I was curious to see how he would follow that up. So in the second Wallace Hartman mystery, this one, sometimes I've heard it that our second novels are actually better than the first, because I guess we've learned something in the process. In this particular book, Herbert Martineau, a Louisiana politician infamous for changing his mind on hot button issues, has been murdered. His body posed to send a message. Baton Rouge homicide detective Wallace Hartman once again has to figure out who's sending that message. DNA points to Eddie Pitkin, a social justice activist who also happens to be the half-brother of Wallace's childhood best friend. So what I can say at this point is that and I'm going to let Roger explain where he's going. I know he's doing some short stories to fill in the time, but I know he's working on what's coming next in his writing career. And I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes with this and whether Wallace Hartman shows back up again. So Roger, I would like to introduce you to share with all the fine folks this evening. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me back at Hometown Novel Night. I love being here and seeing familiar faces and some new ones. And thank you for that lovely introduction.
All right, anybody else like to pass a comment or a question to Roger before we wind this up?
Thanks again, Mike. I've enjoyed being here. I love Hometown Novel Night. Thank you for being the head guy who brings this thing into the world. That's no small task, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate all of the guests. I hope that everybody leaves and passes the word that on November 19th, Thursday night, beginning at 6:30, we've got 3 more fantastic authors to share their journey and their books with us. And if you've got some parents out there that's got some young kids that might be looking for some children's book suggestions for the holidays, on the November 21st at 10:30 on Saturday morning, we will do a children's version of this exact program, except designed for children's books. So please sign up on Hometown Novel Night, stay in touch, and I look forward for all of y'all coming back and joining us in the coming weeks.